Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
Hey, I'm Logan. I'm a sergeant first class in the Army, and I've been lucky enough to secure one of the charity slots provided by the Lifetime Foundation for next year's Leadville 100. In order to do this, I'm looking to raise around $2,800 over the course of the next year to donate to the Lifetime Foundation. A lot of their focus is on youth movement and nutrition and conservation, among other things. And it's a really great cause, and I appreciate any help that you guys could give. And a little bit goes a long way, and it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, Welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @_MisfitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation Show. I know it's been a week since we've been live. Some issues with guests arriving and having things go on in their lives. So today we have a show, and this will be a good one. We are live a little late, but we're here. Thanks for hanging out with us. And again, keep those who went through the storms the last 3-4 weeks with Helene in North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, Milton throughout Florida. Keep those people recovering in your thoughts and prayers. I know it's off the news now because it's not the thing to watch right now, but keep them in your thoughts and prayers. They're still recovering. 101st Airborne, 82nd Airborne is still in North Carolina and East Tennessee, helping them folks out and helping them recover. We did not make it 2 days from Sunday. We lost two more populated on the End to Watch site. So we'll remember them right now. Detective Maurice Mo Joseph of the Norfolk Police Department, Virginia. End to Watch October 9th, 2024. And Corrections Officer Bradford D. McNew, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Florida. End to Watch Saturday, October 12th, 2024. Keep their friends, their families, and all their fellow officers in your thoughts and prayers as they go through a very tough time in their lives and try to make it to the other side. Let's try to keep doing the right thing and make the world a better place by looking up and looking in each other's eyes and seeing what we can do to help each other. Today we have a good one. Our guest is a Christian, a husband, girl dad, and the most persistent person you'll ever meet. He went from being the shy, quiet guy to one who commands any room he enters. Through his persistent efforts and transformative communication methods, he has helped hundreds of business owners build confidence and clarity in their speaking, which has transformed their lives and businesses, amounting to over $1 million in recognizable profits. So without further ado, let's welcome Philip Sessions to the Misfit Nation Show. Welcome, Philip.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. Glad that the link got to you and we're able to be here zooming across the interwebs together tonight.
Yeah. I apologize for that. After you sent it to me again, all of a sudden the email was right there. I was trying to look through all the emails, could not find it for the life of me. And then, of course, find it right after I get it again. So
that's how it always happens. It's always the last place we look, right?
Yeah.
So, Philip, I just gave a 2-sentence intro on you. If you don't mind, tell the Misfit Nation a little bit more about you from as far back as you want to go to how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, of course. So that very short introduction to me, but like was mentioned, I was a shy and introverted kid all the way back in 3rd grade. I actually missed a day of school, came back the next day, asked the teacher, what did I miss? And she turns to me, and I still don't know to this day if she was serious or not, but she says, oh, I didn't know you missed. That's how quiet of a person I was. And we can fast forward into high school where I started kind of coming out of my shell, but it was just around friends. And then in college, I started getting more open, talking to people, but I wouldn't talk to girls that I want to pursue in a romantic way. And I got a degree in electrical engineering. And so when I went off to my first job with electrical engineering, which is also something that seems kind of crazy. So I was this guy that had an electrical engineering degree, usually very introverted people stay behind the computer. And I decided to start speaking. Well, it was because I was in these roles. It was 2 different roles in particular where I was doing a lot of the work as the young engineer, but I kept being talked down to and even being called the young, dumb engineer. And so finally, after that second job where it just kept happening, I finally said, enough is enough. I need to make a change. And I had already been starting to get into self-development and everything, had been to some business conferences and stuff like that, and seeing these speakers. And that's what I want it to be. I thought if I could be a speaker like them, they've impacted me. I know they've impacted a lot of other people in rooms. And the fact that I'm not speaking up for myself, I need to get like that, have that confidence, have that boldness. And just seeing how it transformed my life by getting better at speaking, I then wanted to turn around and help others with that same thing.
Outstanding. And then along the way, of course, you had your daughters, your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and that's a burden, and it's a blessing and a burden at the same time, because now you have someone else to take care of, and it's having a girl. It makes you that girl dad that you're always watching out for them, just instinctually.
Yeah, yeah, and I've got two. So I've got one that's about to be 3, and then the other one is about to be 8 months. So right there in the thick of it right now, but it's a blessing for sure. But I think about that, and I think about with them, my oldest one, she's just a chatterbox. And encourage that. There's times where it's like, all right, let's calm down a little bit. But I try and encourage it, because I know if I start to squander her courage to be able to speak up and just say hey to anybody, that it's going to hurt her in the long run. So also try to keep that in mind. And it's hard as a parent, because you're like, all right, just be quiet. But you also don't want to say it too much, because I want to keep encouraging her, because I know that will help her be a leader and be able to stand out in the crowd of people that just want to stay to themselves.
And she won't wind up being like you, missing school and no one even notices it. You want
Exactly,
to be noticed.
exactly. I don't want that. And I know the intro kind of talked about that with the suicide watch and everything. Like, call the hotline for sure, because people will miss you. You think they won't, and maybe in the moment, like that was something silly, like the teacher maybe didn't notice I was there or not. If I would have just never been there again, they would have known. And that's the same thing with family and friends. It seems like you're alone, but you're not. There are people there that care about you. So make sure you do reach out. Make sure you are talking to people. It's tough to be the one always reaching out, but the more you're reaching out, the more you're focusing on that rather than focusing on yourself, helping other people. I think that will help with that situation that maybe you're going through right now.
Definitely, definitely. And we have something here we call the 5 to 1 concept. So if you're having a problem, those 5 fingers point at you, but they also point to your 5 friends. Everyone has at least 5 people in their network that are real close to them. Those 5 people should be there and able to reach back to you, and you should be able to reach out to those 5 at all times to say, hey, look, I need to get this off my chest. And maybe that'll help them and help each other get through that, like you said, the difficult times.
Yeah.
So as you went from this shy, introverted guy to building that confidence, how was that climb to go from that shy introvert to building that confidence to being able to get on a stage and maybe talk to a large group?
Oh man, it was easy. It just happened overnight. Totally kidding there. It was a struggle for sure. Actually, when I started getting into deciding that I wanted to become a speaker and everything, one of the things I thought of was starting a podcast. Well, I bought the mic, I downloaded the software so I could do the audio editing, and I did nothing.
Oh, wow.
I sat on it for at least a year. It was probably a year and a half. And I finally went to this event, and there was this guy there. He had, 30, 40,000 people that were following him on Instagram. He had the podcast. He had all these things going for him. And I finally asked the question, because it was this like little social event and they were doing a Q&A session. I said, how do you start a podcast? And what he told me, it always makes me cringe, but at the same time, I know it's really the thing that you have to do. And he said, just do it. And of course, he went on to give me some actual advice, like, hey, here's some things to think about. Try this, try that. But at the end of the day, it was just about taking that action. And so a lot of times what I like to say, get this phone out, take videos on it. If you want to get more comfortable and confident with speaking, start to do videos, even if you just record it and you never post it. But I would strongly suggest that you start posting that. And just to give an example, I've got a buddy, we did a 30-day live challenge probably about a year and a half ago. About a year and a half ago. And when we were going through that live challenge, he was doing on Facebook, and it counts down 3, 2, 1. And he was nervous as could be. And it was just at least 30 seconds, do it live for at least 30 seconds. And he would struggle to get to 30 seconds. But after day 6, he started looking forward to it. And by like day 10 or 15, he was sitting there going for 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And just going on and just talk about anything. And you couldn't only just see the transformation in his lives. When you talk to him in person as well, he was so much more confident and comfortable. And that was in 30 days. So imagine you being in that same spot where I just don't know if I want to. I feel awkward. What am I going to talk about? That was exactly where my friend was at. And he just started doing the lives, just started doing it. And then all of a sudden he transformed. And people even started recognizing him. Like, he'd been to all these networking events, but people started seeing his videos, his lives that he was doing on social media, and they recognized him even more and would start talking about that to him in person as well. So it gave him a lot of credibility and actually helped market himself and get that confidence in himself just by doing something as simple as a live video on social media.
And it's amazing the little things that can make things much better. Just like I can sit in my Jeep now and just make recordings of myself, just like you were saying there. As I'm waiting for my granddaughter to come out of school, I'm sitting in the parent pickup line. Always have to be number one there, so I race to get there first, and I sit there in the number one in the pole position, and I just make videos, or I do other things for the show while sitting in there. People may think I'm crazy going talking to myself all day, but I have a blast doing it, and I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wasn't it kind of crazy? We're here right now. We're talking to each other, but I'm literally looking at my camera lens so I can mimic that I'm making eye contact with you and the audience as well. But we're just talking to a screen, essentially. Yes, we're able to talk back and forth, but it's just a screen at the end of the day. So somebody, if they were looking at me through the window, they would see right now, like, what in the world is Philip doing? He's sitting here just looking. But hey, at the end of the day as well, which actually makes me think of a good point. People really don't care about you. They are so focused on themselves, they could care less about you. And those that actually seem to care about you for some weird reason, they're not going to be somebody that's even worth dealing with anyways, because that's most likely a hater or somebody who's just looking for you to fail.
Yep.
And so you don't need them in your life anyway. So who cares about those people that are paying attention to you in that manner? But most people are not paying attention to you until they know that what you're sharing is worth them paying attention to.
Exactly. And the first time I noticed people were watching me in the Jeep was when I put my skeleton in the front seat with me for Halloween month. I put Scully up there with me, and now they all stop and talk to the skeleton as they walk by the Jeep. Hey, how are you? Well, he's going to talk back to you, I guess. I don't know what's going on. This is awesome.
That's funny. That is awesome.
So I even dressed him up. I put clothes on him now so he's not naked up there so they don't get too embarrassed talking to him.
There you go. Especially getting into the winter months, you got to make sure that his bones don't chill.
It's the little things that matter.
Exactly.
So as you started your speaking career, did you start with just telling your journey story, or was there some other motivation behind your speeches?
Yeah, that's where a lot of it came from. So me getting over that fear of speaking myself, seeing how it transformed my corporate career and my personal life and everything, really started talking about that. But then I also got into the tactics of speaking itself. So some of it I had started doing a little bit, but I wouldn't say I was necessarily the master at it. Still, I'm not the master at speaking and communication, but I go through and talk a lot about the journey I've had and the things that I've learned along the way, or what I've read in books and everything like that. So I would say a mixture of both. At the beginning, it was more about what I've learned, what I've experienced. But as I've started to learn new things, it's not necessarily been an experience, but it's something that I know about, or from a coaching client that I can talk about a story with them. Like I mentioned with my friend doing the 30-day live challenge, I start using other people's experience to help share and help educate people so they can become a better speaker and feel more confident and feel like, okay, that's something I can do. That's relatable.
Right. That helps a lot when, especially when you learn their story, learn your story, and find out their journey, and you're able to get up there and share that with yet another group, another network, to let them, maybe they'll share your story and your friend's story when they become a speaker themselves. Oh, I was at this event and Philip was speaking. This is a story he shared. Now your story is getting shared around the world without you even knowing it, without signing a waiver. It's out there because you shared your journey with them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Our journey, our message, it matters. We just need to start sharing it.
Definitely. And like you said before, not stifling your daughter now, it's going to help her leaps and bounds as she goes into elementary school, middle school. She gets on if she becomes an athlete or actress, whatever she wants to do in school, becomes a doctor, nurse, whatever she wants to do in life, she's still going to be ahead of people because she's able to speak her mind and tell them how it is. And she'll be telling you that stuff for the rest of her growing days. Daddy, we're going to do this. Yes, we will. And but you don't want to argue with her either. But you're going to lose. So.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of sharing other people's stories, I had a guy on my podcast one time. He was an engineer, a lawyer, and I think something else like very high level. I forget what it was, but he worked for NASA, and then obviously he was a lawyer. But even though he was very smart, he wasn't the smartest guy there. but he could communicate well. So he ended up being the guy that every manager, hey, we've got this high up official coming in. We need you to present. Hey, we've got this person come in. We need you to present. He was given the opportunities because he could communicate well. And so it wasn't the fact that he had the most knowledge. And a lot of times, especially when we're in that working level, whether it be in the business or our own business, or it be in a corporate world, we think that, oh, we're the working level. We're the one doing all the work. We're the engineer and we're the accountant. That's the most value. And really, it's not. And it's a bizarre concept, but really being able to manage people and being able to communicate is such a higher value to a company, to your own company as well, than it is to be that worker bee and everything. And so learning how to communicate will help level you up, whether you're in the corporate career, your personal life, or your own business, because communication to me is 90+% of our problems anyways. But that's just an example I wanted to share of somebody who was very smart, worked for NASA, worked in the law office, and yet because he was really good at communicating, he had a lot more opportunities come to him versus those engineers that were way smarter than him and the lawyers that were way better at the law than him, simply because he could communicate well.
And sometimes that's all it takes to get that foot ahead of people, to have that one extra skill that you're better at than they are. You may not be the best engineer, may not be the best lawyer, but you can sell the brand. And that's what gets you out there ahead of other people.
Exactly. And it goes back into business, right? So we can feel like we have a way superior product, better quality, deliver it quicker. Maybe it's even cheaper, just so it's more affordable, if you will, and everything. Yet somebody else who has half the quality of the product of you, they're charging twice the price. They get the business because they know how to communicate it right. They have the confidence in that, and they build up the relationship with the person versus, hey, here's my product, you should get it, it's superior to everything on the market. It's not always about that, unfortunately, but those of us that are in the weeds in our business, we tend to think that's what it's all about. It's just, and you should, I'm not saying you should have an amazing product,
Right.
but there's other factors that make people buy besides just the amazing product. That's something that, as long as it works, that's almost what a lot of people really care about. And then it's really, who are they working with after that?
Right. Definitely. Uh, as I came in the military, you got to give a lot of speeches, of course, and you got to talk in front of a lot of people. So for 22 years, I built that repertoire of being able to speak in front of people and speak on the fly. A lot of times, just giving that, hey, it's you're doing it today. Oh, okay, great. What am I talking about? I have no idea. Let's wing it and we'll make this happen. Motivate people somehow. And I got out and I volunteered at the Red Cross, and Dave Sanderson of Dave Sanderson Speaks came to give a speech at one of our fundraisers, and asked me to do his slides, flip his slides, which he never looked at his slides, and they never really were used, but I was there. So I sat there with his slides, and just watching the way he delivered his speech and told his story of being the last person to get off the plane when the plane crashed into Hudson with Sully Sullenberger. He was the last passenger to come off there. And he told that story with passion and some great resilience to get off there, and remembering the stories of his mom telling him to pay attention to people and doing things the right way, and the way he got off that plane. And then he put the pitch to give to the Red Cross after that, because of what they did for him when he got off the boat. And it was just amazing to see everyone jump up and fill out those envelopes and gravitate to him. And me and him had now been pretty much in contact with each other since then, almost like friends, friends adjacent, I guess it would be called.
Yeah. And that's where it comes in. You have to share these stories like that. And so kind of taking that and talking about it from a public speaking perspective, that's a perfect story because it's relatable to who you are and what you've been through. But then he was, I'm sure, trying to get people to join the Red Cross or donate to the Red Cross. And so talking about his story and why he decided to join is going to make you want to join, because you know what, maybe you've been through that same experience, or maybe you realize, wow, I want to be able to help people that are in that situation, that your life is literally turned upside down. You don't know what's going on, yet you have somebody here and you want to be that person there. Like, you want to be that hero. So he's creating that hero story within sharing his story to help you want to go where he wants you to go, essentially at the end of the day, which is donating or joining the Red Cross. So yeah, perfect story to start sharing to create that know, like, and trust with him, but then also showcase how great the Red Cross is.
Definitely. And he told me he took a lot of practice to get up in front of people and do it. And I asked him if he ever like held something in his hand, maybe to like maybe a pin or a paper clip just to keep his hand occupied, or a pen. And he says he used to do that. Now he doesn't have to do it anymore. So I know some people have to hold something when they talk, just to keep something in their hands so their hands don't go wild. And it kind of helped him. He said then he became so relaxed he didn't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I would suggest trying not to do that. Maybe, you know, if you have something like, don't have like a pin, have something that's gonna be a solid thing. So maybe it's like your phone. You can just have your phone in your hand. That way you're not trying to throw your hand all around, but make sure it's not a pin, because you're just gonna start clicking it. Or if you got keys, you're gonna start, you know, just rolling them in your hand and stuff like that. So make sure it's something that can't make noise and be distracting for the audience if you really feel that need to have something in your hands.
When you first started speaking, did you have a monotone speak, or did you practice at home first to try to break that monotone, that I guess the Charlie Brown teacher speech, and get into that hyper more motivational speak?
Yeah, it was very monotone. Even probably about 4 years ago was where I started kind of breaking that mold. Like looking back at some of the older videos, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was very rough looking back now. But for me, it was more about just getting the reps in, just starting to speak. And so for those of you starting right now with speaking, that's a great thing to try and focus on. But what I find is that the message is more important than the delivery per se. Yes, you need to have a good delivery. Yes, you should have that vocal variety where your voice goes up and you get excited and then it comes back down to a neutral tone, or you just get really quiet, really sad kind of thing. Whatever that may be, you want to have that vocal variety, but at first it needs to be a good message. And I think about some of the people I've listened to their podcast, and it's a person I know has a great message, and they happen to have one podcast episode where the audio just isn't quite that good. But I still listen to it anyways because I know that person has a great message. But if it's another podcast that I listen to regularly, maybe it's like a friend or something like that, and they got a good message, but it's not like something I feel like I need to listen to every single episode, but I do to kind of support them and hear what they got going on and what they're sharing. And they have bad audio, I'm going to turn it. Like, I'll listen. I'll wait for the next one. And so I use that example to reiterate, if your message is good enough, it doesn't truly matter if you're monotone or not, if you're a little dry or not. Yes, we should work on that. But I want to say that to encourage you when you're first getting started. Just focus on getting a message out there. You're going to get better over time. And so how do you do that? It's by recording yourself, both video and audio, looking at the video, looking at the audio, doing them individually as well as together. That way you can see, how are you acting? Are you moving your hands at all? Are you moving them so crazy? What do you do with your hands? What do you do with your facial expressions where you're not hearing the audio? How do you sound? Do you just sound like Eeyore the whole time as you talk? Or what's going on there? And then of course do it with video and audio so you can see as well. But you can start picking things out and then fix one thing at a time. That's the way I would go about, and what I did for myself as well, and still do to this day, is go back and watch the recordings. I might not always do audio only, video only, and then both, but I'll go and watch the audio and video and see how am I reacting or presenting myself on that stage or on the video on a podcast like this and everything, and then critique myself and start to fix those things.
Exactly, and that goes back to the practice makes not perfect but better. And
Yeah.
You don't see athletes at the professional level not watching game tape. You got to watch game tape to see where you are and see how to better the next time, so you don't make those same mistakes you just did. So if
Exactly. And you have to have played a game in order to be able to look at your own game tape. So don't sit here. I mean, it's great to read books. It's great to get that knowledge. But if you don't do anything, how do you know what you really need to learn? And so for me, when I started getting into business, one of the things, like, I started trying to do sales, and I realized like I was not very good at it. So let me go read up on sales. Okay, cool. Sales started getting better. Let me, marketing's not so good. Let me start reading up on marketing. I started to read the things rather than, oh, my friend suggested this book. I started to read books and consume content that was going to teach me what I was deficient in. And so same thing for you. Start speaking, look at what you're doing, and then go find videos on how to not be monotone or how to tell better stories or whatever that thing is. But you've got to start and have something that you can look at and assess before you just start, okay, let me look up everything. Because then you're just going to procrastinate and feel like you need to learn everything before you get started when maybe you're not actually monotone. Maybe you don't say ums and ahs. You don't need to actually go learn those things because you naturally have that gift of the vocal variety and not saying and ah and all the other filler words in your speech. So take that action first and then start to educate yourself on how to fix the things that need to be fixed.
Outstanding. And you mentioned telling a story there. There's a lot of different ways to tell a story. What was your go-to way to tell a story, or how did you learn to tell a story?
That's a good question. I guess for me, it was always just whatever was on my heart at the time. It wasn't necessarily I thought I had at the beginning of telling stories, but when I started getting more into speaking, I guess having that engineering background, it was more of just let me give you the information. And I started realizing I needed to find ways to be able to connect with the audience, and which really is where a story comes in to help out with that. And I started realizing that, yes, I can literally tell the information, like, here's how you get better at speaking. But then going back to my friend I talked about with the live videos, if I share that story about how he got better at the live videos, I could have just told you, do live videos and you're going to get better at speaking. But instead, I shared that story of how my friend used live videos to get better. And so I just found that instead of being factual, facts tell and stories sell, that I needed to start telling stories. So it kind of just came, I guess, a little bit naturally for me. And as I started thinking about it and coaching others, that was something that just kind of came up. But it was really just, how can I find another way to be able to basically say the same thing I said and teach the same thing without literally just saying the same thing again, that, hey, do live videos to get better at speaking. By the way, don't forget, you should do live videos to get better at speaking. No, let me say it, do videos to get or live videos to get better at speaking. And then let me tell you about my friend here and what he did and his story of how he got better at it. So I'm trying to say it in multiple ways. So that's kind of how it's morphed for me. But, just really, it was just, I realized I was being too factual and not painting a picture for my audience.
That's great. A great way, a great approach. I've had people use the hand method. I've had people say, watch this video, read this book. And they all are great things, but it all comes down to how you want to present you and your story as you get up there on that stage or in a boardroom, wherever your audience is. You got to present to that audience and meet that audience there, not try to overdo the audience, make them come to you and motivate them to whatever point you're trying to get across to them.
Yeah. And something else that you could do, like, find somebody that you like as a speaker. Maybe it's Tony Robbins, maybe it's Steve Jobs, whoever it is. Go and watch videos and see how it is that they present information and present stories and everything, and then start to emulate that. That'd be another great way to do it.
Definitely. And speaking of emulating, you mentioned reading books before, and of course watching other talks. What are some of the go-to books you read that maybe would help some of the audience get over their speaking fears or teach them to be a little more confident on the stage?
Talk Like TED is a good one. It talks about basically TEDx talks and everything like that. I've got to look back. Let's see. I've got all three books right here. So Talk Like TED, great one right there.
Nice.
By Carmen Galeo. The Exceptional Presenter. This one is very much more factual. It doesn't really talk through stories, but by Timothy Kogel. That one's great to talk about presentation, especially from a corporate perspective. And then The Successful Speaker, try and turn it there so the light doesn't get too bad, by Grant Baldwin. I think those are all really good. The Successful Speaker really talks more about the business side of speaking. So as you're trying to get on stage and everything, how do you set yourself up for that? How do you actually get paid for that? That book by Grant Baldwin, The Successful Speaker, is a really good one for that. And so those are three that I literally just pull off the shelf right there that I've really enjoyed listening to, but I also just like listen to other speakers and stuff like that and hear what they're doing. And YouTube University, another great way to find that information out there.
Or Dr. Google. So
Yeah,
they all work. So
exactly.
where do you see your business in the next 5 years with your speaking and coaching of businesses?
Yeah, so I'm taking a little bit different approach. So I'm actually kind of using a second business that's a virtual assistant agency business, and literally, no, I mean, pun intended there, leveraging that as I talk about how to leverage virtual assistants and how to delegate tasks, leadership, things of that nature, and speaking on that, and then getting sales through that, those speaking engagements, or getting leads through that to help people understand how it is that I use the stage, how I use podcast to funnel business for me for that side, which then will funnel business for me on the speaking coaching side. So at the moment with the speaking coaching side, I really just see it being me doing it, whether it be one-on-one or one to maybe a few people, like groups and stuff like that. So it's probably going to be more on that smaller side, because it is a lot of my time having to be put in that. But the virtual assistant agency will actually be really scalable for me, so that I can just enjoy the speaking coaching more, and of course going out there and speaking more and more on more stages and podcasts.
Outstanding. And we've talked about business speaking, communicating in business, and communicating to get that sale or your brand out there. How do we communicate better to lead our families?
It comes down to being clear and concise, and being repeated, like you're repeating yourself on that over and over again. Especially us as men, I believe we are to be the leaders of the household. And so we have to be that firm rock. I think back to when my dad passed away. I was like, man, he was the rock of the family. And it was like the rock was gone. And not that we were like unstable after that. And I was 26 at the time, so it wasn't like I was 13 and still at the house. But still, it was like the rock of the family was gone. And that's us as men. We are the rock of the family. We have to be the firm foundation within the family. And then I also believe that God's that foundation for us, but we're one of those cornerstones, if you will, within the family. And so we have to be stable. And so we have to continue to repeat the same message, whether it be family core values, whether it be this is how the household's going to run. And not that we're dictating overall, we're just like, you listen to me and this is the way it's going to be. But being that consistent person, especially if you've got girls, you've got to be that constant for them. Because unfortunately, I haven't had to experience it yet, but I got a buddy that's got 3 girls that are going through puberty, and he tells me how crazy the emotions are and everything. So you have to be that stable person. But then going back to the communication aspect, which goes into that stability, it's just communicating and having the same message at all times, being on the same page with your spouse with things. So if your spouse says, hey, no, you can't have that, don't sit there and say, oh, well, it's going to be okay. Don't undermine your spouse. And that goes both ways, but really being clear on what it is that you want. And it feels like, especially for us men, like over communicating, but we need to make sure that we are communicating not just what's up inside our head that makes sense, but communicating fully all the details. And so I always like to give this silly example, but we had an ant infestation one time at our house, and we've got the dog food bowl, which is in the breakfast nook area, and we've got the dog food container with all the other dog food that we don't just give them all at once in the laundry room. Well, I told my wife one day, I'm like, oh my gosh, because we thought we had gotten rid of the ants. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's ants by the dog food. And then not 10 or 15 minutes later, she came back. I was like, oh my gosh, there's ants by the dog food bowl. I'm like, yeah, that's what I said. But I really didn't. I just said dog food. And so in her mind, she assumed the dog food container, but I was talking about the dog food bowl. But I didn't say that. And that's that thing, just that one extra word, dog food bowl, instead of just dog food. And we wouldn't have had that conversation a second time. And I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect. You know, you could try and communicate and say every little detail, and people are still going to ask you questions, or they're going to bring it up like you've never brought it up before. Your spouse, your kids, especially, they're going to bring it up no matter what because they want their way. They're not going to listen to you. But the more you can communicate, even just that one little word extra, that in your mind you had that information, you knew that's what you were talking about. Your spouse didn't, because they didn't see the ants by the dog food bowl. So they had to make an assumption between the two things in this situation. So we just want to make sure that we are clearly communicating, and really what feels like over communication for us men, and giving those extra details that will help fill in the context behind what we're trying to share.
And that's something I think every one of us men have gone through. So it's in their book to question anything we say or say we
Yeah.
didn't say it. So make sure you say it right at least one time, maybe 2 or 3 times, just so you cover your bases. Maybe record yourself sometimes
Yeah.
and get
Record yourself, send a text message, send a couple of emails,
send a video of you saying it to with her sitting next to you. So that way you have some proof when you go to the court of marriage and you lose.
Exactly.
We had a question from a member of our Tuesday crew, Cagney or Stephen. He said, "You say you follow how someone speaks, but do you read the room and adjust the conversation, or just go with your normal speech every time?"
That's a great question. And so I would try and read the room. Sometimes it depends on where you're at. Like if you're at these big conferences, you're going to have these lights in your face and you can't see the room. So you're going to have to go with your normal speech. But if you're in a smaller room, like a conference room at a hotel or something like that, you're going to be able to read that room, and you can start to change up that speech. And so something that I actually do is I'll have a prepared speech that I know, hey, I'm going to talk about this certain topic. I've got a couple of points to support that, and some stories that, based on the audience, that I believe I'll share. But if I'm not the only speaker there, or if I get there early and I start networking with people and talking and hearing some things that people are saying, I'll actually add that in there. Or like if I met John who does roofing, then I might actually kind of point to him in the audience, even though that wasn't in my speech to talk about that. I'll kind of ad lib some of those things in there. But yeah, I'll read the room, and if a joke just doesn't hit, or if a story's not making sense to them, they just look like they're completely lost, I'll try and figure out ways to be able to explain that more, try a different story, whatever that may be. But yeah, reading the room is a huge thing that you should be doing if you can actually do that.
100%. You have to be able to read a room, and you're right with the larger rooms, those lights in your eyes. Seems like every time I give a presentation or a speech to a large group, I'm scanning the room, and all of a sudden there's that one set of eyes that grabs you, and you get locked every once in a while, like, oh, what just happened? And you're trying to remember what you're saying. You're saying stuff you don't even know what you're saying at that point, because you're locked in on this gaze, and so you have to try to get off that eye, and then you're in the lights again. So it's a weird anomaly that happens every time like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens to you as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. And you're like, and sometimes I'll even be, as that's happening, I'm like, I can't believe I'm still speaking. And then here I am thinking about something completely different. I'm like, how am I still doing this? This is just crazy, but it happens.
Am I still standing?
Our mind is amazing.
Am I still standing up? What happened?
Yeah. Right. Good thing I'm not chewing gum.
Do you have plans to maybe write a book of your own on speaking, or even on your journey?
Yeah, that is in the plans. I've been saying I'm going all year. I'm going to do it this year, and that's something that I'm still saying I'm going to do. I need to get on that ASAP, because the year is evaporating very quickly. But that is the plan, to write a book on public speaking and my journey and everything.
Outstanding. When you get the book out, just let us know, and we'll give you some plugs on here for it to help you
All
out
right,
and
awesome.
get the word out for you. Philip, this has been great chatting with you. What we do to our guests at the end of every show is ask them to give 3 bits of advice to the Misfit Nation on how they can make themselves better tomorrow and the next day. So what would be 3 things our audience can do to make their lives a little better as they go forward starting tomorrow?
So one of the things that I want you to do right now, especially those of you that are married or even in a relationship, go and rub your wife's feet, rub your girlfriend's feet, or just do something nice. Whether you're a man or a woman, do something nice for your spouse right now. That's going to make you feel better, but of course it's going to make them feel better, and I bet they're probably going to reciprocate something right then and there. And so it's just going to be a great thing. Second thing, go make a video. if you've learned anything from this, if you want to get better at speaking, make videos. So I challenge you to make a video right now. It could be about your food, your dog, your cat, whatever it is. Just go make a video to help start getting that confidence up. And then the third thing I would say, just start reading on books that you want to learn something about, whether it be public speaking or business sales, whatever it is. Just start speaking, or not speaking, sorry, just start reading today so you can get better at that thing that you want to do. And I know that none of those really had anything to do with speaking, I guess the one, but that just was on my heart right now that I felt like I should share with you. And actually right after this, that's the plan for me, is to do the first thing is go give my wife a foot rub, because I told her I was going to do that today, but I'm here to do this, and I'll go do that right after this.
Don't let us hold you up and get you in more trouble there. We don't want that.
Right?
What's the best way for the audience to maybe get in contact with you, and or if they have their own podcast, get you to come on their show?
You can find me on any social media platform. The two places I like to hang out the most is LinkedIn. With Philip Sessions is, linkedin.com/n/Philip Sessions, and that's Philip with one L, or you can find me on Facebook at The Real Philip Sessions.
And we shared both of those in the show notes as well as in the chat during the show, so you should be able to go back and see those. And we have his website as well. We'll put up here in a second, so you guys can reach out to his website and see what's going on now and in the future as well. Philip, thank you again for taking your time away from your family tonight to hang out with us, looking into our little boom mics here and boom cameras and hanging out. This has been awesome. I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rich. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Have a good night, brother.
You too.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation Show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.